Hello and welcome to Chess with Ivan. Today we're going to talk about stalemate, which is a type of situation in chess where the game ends in a draw or a tie. We're going to use this position in order to get the basics, and then we're going to look at some more interesting examples. So, if we look at the chessboard, we see that the game is probably close towards the end, as there is not many pieces on the table. And white should really be winning that position, because a king plus a queen should be enough to perform a checkmate on the black opponent, which has only a lone king. So, whether white will win this game or not will depend on whether they know what stalemate is, because even in this position, black has still a chance, if white is not careful, to obtain a draw from this game, which they really shouldn't do, as clearly white is doing better. So, the definition of a stalemate is a situation where the player whose move it is cannot make any moves, or all the possible moves that they can make are against the rules of chess. I'll give you an example shortly. And at the same time, they are not under check. If you're in check and you can't make any moves with your king, you are in checkmate. So this is an example of when you actually lose the game. So white can do many moves here that will allow them to win the game. But if they're not careful, they might draw this game in just one move. So one idea for white would be how to corner further the king and basically deliver checkmate. But if white here puts their queen closer to the black king on the square b6, then all of a sudden the game is over, out of nothing. This queen, being able to move diagonally and forwards, is covering all the squares that the black king can go to, meaning that king is trapped. So when it is black's turn after that move, they cannot play anything, they're just kind of stuck. And in chess you cannot pass a move, you have to make a move. So in this case, due to the fact that black has to make a move, but they can't, the game sort of ends. And because the black king is not in check, black is not punished by losing the game, but the game rather ends in a draw. So what white should do is make a move that allows black to perform legal moves until they're in a position to deliver a checkmate. A better move for white here, in order to not draw the game but win, would be to go with the queen to b5, so that black now has a move. These squares are still occupied by the queen. However, this square, all of a sudden, a7, is not. So black can perform another move, and now it's white's turn again. And now white can bring their king closer. Black has the move king a7 to king a8. And now you can actually, as white, checkmate that king. One of the ways that you can do it is by moving your queen to b7. And now the black king cannot move here or here, because the queen is protecting both of these squares. But the big difference is, as Lichess website nicely shows, is you are under check. So the black king is flaring up saying you're threatened. And since you're threatened and you cannot escape, this game also has ended, but this time white has won the game. So that is the very basic explanation of the checkmate and stalemate, and I will just put it in a stalemate position because this is what is more tricky and more nuanced to be understood from people who are just starting out in chess. Again, if it's black's turn now, the game is over and black has managed to not lose this game. So an important principle in stalemate is that it doesn't matter how many pieces you have. If you cannot make a move, it's still stalemate. I will explain it with the following position. It's exactly the same as the previous one, but this time black has a couple of pawns and white has a couple of pawns. So in this situation, if white makes the same move, which was a mistake earlier because it led to stalemate, this still would be good for black. Let's see. The game again is over because we've discussed already why the black king cannot move. These squares are all under attack from the queen, so you cannot place that black king there. But also, these pawns cannot move. As you probably know, pawns can move forward, and in this case the black pawns are blocked. So again, black cannot make any legal moves. You also probably know that pawns capture sideways, so here there is nothing to capture, so these pawns cannot move. If, for example, there was a white pawn here, this position will not be stalemate, because black has the move pawn to take whatever is on the square d3, and the game will continue. So sometimes it's actually not good to be able to capture a piece, because when you're going for stalemate, usually you're behind, you're about to lose the game, so you want really all of your pieces to be immobilized, let's say. And that's the basic principle of it. I wanted to go over a few examples which might be more interesting and will help you understand why you need to know what stalemate is and how to actually put it to your advantage. So it's a pretty rare thing to happen in chess. That's why I kind of want to see some practical examples from games that I have played. And I looked at the stats. 40 of my games, of slightly more than 7,000 only chess, have ended in stalemate, which is basically 0.5%. So very rare, very good to obtain a draw from the losing position, and very annoying if you're winning to be a bit careless and then to draw the game because your opponent was trapped in a way. Here I was white pieces, and I am trying to prevent black from making this pawn into a queen. So when choosing my next move, since it's my go with my king, if I went to a square such as e1 or e2, I would allow their king to swoop in and ensure a safe passage of their pawn towards h1. Instead of that, I'm doing everything possible to prevent that. So my next move was king from f1 to g1. In order to maintain control of this square and not make it easy for my opponent to promote a pawn. So they tried to sort of also fight over these squares. Notice that neither of the kings can go on the second rank, because a king cannot touch where another king is also protecting, because that would be illegal under chess. And if you think about it, if you move your king there and it was allowed, then your opponent would just take that king and win the game. So I snuck into the corner, thinking if I stay around there, there's no way my opponent could win. So I was just hanging around between g1 and h1 and basically not allowing them to make any progress. They tried. I kept hovering around h1, and they played this move. Basically, now I have achieved stalemate. By being stubborn and sitting in the corner, even though my opponent had an extra pawn, I did not allow them to make that pawn into the queen that you saw in the earlier example would be able to checkmate me. My king is supposed to move, but it cannot go here on account of the pawn. And it can't go here or here because their king is protecting these two squares. Meaning I'm not under check, and I also can't move, so this game ends in a draw. And just for your chess education, you should know that whenever there is a situation in which there is a king of each side and a pawn on either the H file or A file, that game, if you play correctly as the player with only a king, should be always a draw, because if you manage to control the square A1 or H1, depending on where the pawn is, they cannot make progress. Of course, if you make moves that put your king away, then that game will be won by your opponent, because they will be able to make a queen. But once you know it, and once you know that there is a stalemate possibility, you know that you're not going to lose that game. And this all comes down to you being aware that by sticking your king in a corner, you will achieve stalemate. Now, I can't just brag how I steal draws from my opponents, so let's see a situation in which I lost, even though I should have won. When a king has two bishops against a king, you should be able to win the game. However, I panicked a little bit because I had relatively low time in this situation. So I made a move in this position, which ended the game right on the spot, but unfortunately not in a checkmate, in a stalemate position. So I'm gonna give you a chance to pause the video and guess what I played, and basically find a bad move for white. So find a move that makes this position stalemate. Please go ahead, and I'll give you a couple of seconds, after which we can continue discussing. Great. So, if you haven't found it, I will give you a hint as well. This square for the black king and these two are protected by the bishops, so they can't go here anyways. So I managed to find the only move that also takes away these two squares from the king. Now, pause the video and try to find it, knowing what my hint was. Alright, so I played king to f7. If you found that move, congratulations. You are aware what not to play in a game, because that situation now ends as a draw in a game that I should have played better moves and won. So, silly me. And then I also wanted to show you a final example, which is why I made this video, because I was really upset that I managed to not win a game which looks like that. So I'm black pieces and I have all these guys. My opponent has only a king and a rook, and the game ended in a stalemate. After a long game that I thought I'm going to win against a relatively high rated opponent, and I was kind of wondering, why is this guy not resigning? I played a move that justified him keeping the fight till the end. So, here it is their move, and they took my knight with the rook, giving me a check. So now my king is under attack, my queen is under attack, and in this situation I played hastily, taking his rook with the queen, which looks like a great move. However, what I didn't realize is all of a sudden the game is over and this is stalemate. Let's see why. They have only one piece left. It can't go here, can't go here due to the king. This diagonal is covering two of the king's flight squares, namely g2 and h1. And what I forgot about in playing this move too quickly is that the rook covers this square. So this is the one I overlooked. And all of a sudden the game ends in a stalemate. So I was pretty upset because I should have won this game. What I should do here is make some move that doesn't stalemate the opponent. For example, if I played a move such as king to, let's say g4, but f4, g5, excuse me, or f5, then they might be able to take my queen. I can escape with my rook from the fact that the king is attacking, and the game will go on. And in a game where I have 3 pawns plus a rook versus a simple rook, I should be able to still do enough in order to win that game. Maybe I can get another queen, maybe I can trap their king, which is kind of, you know, on the side of the board and can't really join and prevent these pawns from advancing. So there were many options, but I quickly played this move and the game ended in draw. Shame and misery for Ivan. So, I hope that was useful to you. Let's recap quickly. What is stalemate? A stalemate is basically a draw when the player whose move it is can't play but is not under attack, meaning that the game is kind of stuck in a situation that is, by the rules of the game, a draw. Unlike checkmate, where the same rules apply about the enemy king, it can't move, but this time it's attacked, so this is how you actually win a game of chess. And then how to use it? Well, when you're down material, you want to put yourself in a situation where your king is kind of stuck, and also all your other pieces, if you have any, can't move. And when you're winning, just be careful and always picture what is their next move. If you can find a move that they can make, a make, they are not in stalemate. And if you quickly just try to kind of suffocate the king, you might end up drawing the game that you should have won. I'm planning to do a bit of an advanced video on a very interesting stalemate that happened in a game between two masters, so I'll send the link in the description. But if you're just starting out in chess, I hope that this video was interesting to you and you managed to learn and solidify your knowledge about stalemate. Thanks guys, see you soon.